Revenge films.
I lived with my wife and our daughter, just the three of us. I worked as a salesman, running around the city every day, drenched in sweat. My daughter was in her third year of junior high school. She had always been in her teenage phase and didn't talk much, but since just before summer, things had gotten even worse. One day, after a long day of running around the city as usual, I came home sweaty. As soon as I stepped into the room, my daughter pinched her nose and said,
Ugh, the whole room smells awful now. Seriously, you stink, like rotten garbage.
She was probably right. I was drenched in sweat, but hearing her say that still shocked me. I looked at my wife for support, but she completely ignored me, and my daughter just said,
It stinks here, so I'm going to my room.
Even though I knew she was just going through a phase, her recent behavior was getting out of hand, so I asked my wife to say something to her. But all she said was,
That's just how teenagers are. It's something everyone has to get through, not just you.
barely taking me seriously. I understood her point, but coming home after working so hard for my family every day, only to be hit with such harsh words, was wearing me down. I wanted to do something about it, but my wishes went unheard, and my daughter's attitude only got worse. One day when I came home, she said,
Hey, Dad, you smell, so don't come into the living room. Go to the bedroom.
She shooed me away like a dog, and I ended up shut in the bedroom. Then she added,
Don't come out. When it's time for dinner, Mom will bring it to you, so just eat in there.
Then she slammed the door. From the living room, I could hear my wife and daughter chatting happily as if they didn't even notice I wasn't there. My wife was a full-time homemaker, and I had to work up a sweat every day to support the household. Yet I couldn't understand why I had to be treated like this at home. Honestly, I felt pathetic. I talked to my wife about it many times after that, but all I ever got in return was she's just going through her teenage phase, and there was nothing I could do. One day my wife told me she needed money because our daughter wanted to take lessons. When I asked what kind of lessons, she said English conversation and piano. I didn't know if that was really what our daughter wanted, but I said there was no need for her to do so many things at once. My wife shot back, You're awful for wanting to cut back on money for our daughter. What do you think you're working for? In the end, she went ahead and decided on the lessons without me. Even though our daughter was constantly giving me attitude, she was still my beloved daughter, so I didn't mind paying for it. But even after she started the lessons, her attitude toward me didn't change at all. She thanked my wife instead of me, even though I was the one paying for everything, which left me feeling a bit conflicted. After she began her lessons, my wife somehow started going along with her to the classes. I told her there was no need for her to go since she wasn't a child, but she said she just wanted to watch our daughter's progress. I couldn't say much more after that. Honestly, once our daughter started going to her lessons, I felt a bit relieved because I could finally sit in the living room and watch TV or eat in peace when she wasn't around. Sometime later, after things had been going on like that for a while, my wife and daughter went out as usual for her lessons. I had a 3-day business trip to another prefecture starting the next day, so I went to a drugstore to buy a few things I was missing for my trip. Next to the drugstore was a restaurant, and I happened to see my wife and daughter there. I thought, why are they here? Aren't they supposed to be at her lesson right now? When I looked inside from outside the restaurant, I saw that for some reason there was a man sitting with them. My wife and I have a 6-year age difference, with her being younger, and the man sitting next to her looked about her age, a young man. I got a bad feeling and decided to head home for the time being. Then, almost without thinking, I rummaged through the dresser and checked our bank book. the $30,000 I had saved was down to just $300. I wanted to confront my wife about it right away, but I thought that if she played dumb, I'd have nowhere to go, so I hesitated. Then I decided to call Anderson, a colleague and also a friend, and told him about the situation. He said it might be an affair. I couldn't believe she'd cheat while taking our daughter along. But when I thought back on how lately my daughter had been looking at me like I was garbage, I couldn't help but feel that anything was possible. Sure, we were paying for our daughter's lessons, but it didn't make sense that $30,000 in savings had dropped to $300 in just 6 months. My friend told me that in any case, I needed proof and should hire a private investigator through an agency. That day, I stayed home as if nothing was wrong, but when my wife and daughter came back, they were all smiles, saying things like how much fun the lessons had been. But the moment they saw me, my daughter said,
Ugh, seeing your face just ruined all the fun we had. Go back to your room. You're an eyesore.
Even worse, my wife, who had always just ignored our daughter's remarks, chimed in and said,
Go on, get to your room. You stink.
Then they shut me away in the bedroom again. I had a lot I wanted to say to both of them, but remembering what my friend had advised, I decided I needed proof first. I immediately hired a private investigator. In less than 2 months, the evidence was gathered, but it was so shocking that I was at a loss for words. According to the investigator's report, just as I had suspected, my wife had been having an affair with a man, the piano teacher at our daughter's school. There were even photos of her meeting him at a hotel. But what shocked me the most was discovering the true nature of my wife and daughter. Apparently, the investigator had managed to record a conversation between my wife and daughter by chance. On the recording, my daughter said,
I wish Mom and Sean would get married soon. Dad's such a nuisance. I wish he'd just die.
My wife replied,
Don't say that so loudly. But yes, I do wish he'd just suddenly drop dead in an accident or something.
Then my daughter said,
For now, let's just push Dad mentally until he's the one who asks for a divorce. If he does, it'll go smoothly, and then you can marry Sean. I can't wait.
Hearing that felt like being pushed off a cliff. I was devastated to know that my wife and daughter, whom I had thought were so precious to me, felt that way about me. It took me a while to recover from the shock, but eventually I calmed down and decided I couldn't go on like this. I organized all the evidence and made up my mind to cut ties with my wife and daughter. On my daughter's graduation day, she said to me,
Don't come to the ceremony. You smell like garbage.
And my wife added,
That's right. If you come, you'll just embarrass us, so stay home.
I decided to do as they said. While they were at school for the ceremony, I carried out the plan I had arranged beforehand and finished everything. When the two of them came home later, they called me in a panic. They said that when they got home, everything was gone. Thinking we'd been robbed, they called the building manager, only to be told that I had already moved out that very day. They were furious. I told them, I'm divorcing you, so we don't need the house anymore. I canceled the lease. Then I said to my wife, Aren't you happy, huh? Didn't you wish I'd just die so you could marry your boyfriend? She was speechless on the other end of the line. I continued. We're getting divorced so you can live however you like. If you want to be with that man, that's fine with me. But you're going to pay me proper compensation. My wife desperately tried to explain herself, but I told her to look at the photos of her affair that I had left for her in the mailbox. Then I hung up. She never called back. After that, my wife realized things were bad and begged me for forgiveness together with our daughter. But unfortunately, I no longer had a shred of love left for either of them. Apparently, she even went to her parents for help, but I had already told them everything before the divorce, so they turned her away at the door and practically threw salt at her. Eventually, the two of them lost their home and ended up moving into a rundown apartment. As for my daughter, after starting high school, instead of enjoying her school life, she had to work part-time jobs non-stop to pay for tuition and living expenses. She couldn't afford clothes or makeup for herself, was labeled as uncool by her classmates, became isolated, and eventually shut herself away at home. As for my ex-wife, who used to be a full-time housewife, she now works but keeps getting yelled at, and if she can't keep up, she gets fired. She's barely able to feed herself and still has to pay me alimony every month, living in extreme poverty. But I see it as nothing more than the consequences of her own actions, and I feel no sympathy.
How was today's video? If you enjoyed it, please subscribe, like, and leave a comment. Stay tuned for more.